To many of you in here, these keys can be the difference between safety and danger, and I'll show you how. How many of you have seen something like this before? All right. Putting the keys between the fingers of your hand is a common defense method taught to women in the U.S. This is one of many methods that we are taught from a very young age, including but not limited to don't go outside alone at night, always watch your drink, don't be a target. If you're in a confrontation, go for the throat and use your elbow because it's the strongest point on your body. Be aware of your surroundings and don't talk to men that you don't know. It's not typically a subject to come up in polite conversation, but women everywhere generally live under rules that are unspoken, because in today's society there is a real fear of being raped if you give the guy the wrong idea, if you don't dress modestly, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because if you are raped, we see it as your fault. The common questions that come up when we hear of a rape case are, was she drinking, what was she wearing, how late was she out? Blaming victims of rape takes the blame off of the rapist and normalizes the act itself. Instead of teaching men not to rape, we teach women not to be raped. This takes the blame off of the perpetrator and puts it onto the victim. You're probably sitting there thinking, no way, rape's horrible. There's no way that a ton of people think that. And you're right, rape is horrible, but it's actually a very common thing in our society. It's more common to sympathize with a rapist than with a victim. For example, in Steubenville, Ohio in 2012, CNN covered a case of 2 football players raping a young girl at a party. CNN correspondent Poppy Harlow was quoted saying, "It was incredibly difficult, even for an outsider like me, to watch what happened as these 2 young men that had such promising futures, star football players, very good students, literally watched as they believed their life fell apart." What about the victim? Wasn't her life changed irreversibly? Steubenville is just one of many examples of people sympathizing with a rapist over the victim. A common excuse that people use for this mindset is, what if she's faking? What if she's falsely accusing this person? According to Men Against Abuse Now, 2% of rape reports are faked. Less than 40% are even reported because of the strong stigma against reporting that you got raped for fear of it being blamed on you. And isn't it obvious you shouldn't rape someone? Theoretically, yes, it is. I think most of the controversy and confusion and accusations and stuff comes from confusion over what consent is and means. Consent is defined as an agreement between participants to engage in sexual activity. To get this agreement, you need to have communication, and you need to have an agreement from both sides. Rape does not depend on your intent. You can still rape someone even if you never meant to. To clear up some confusion, I'll give you some examples of what consent can or cannot look like. One example is if the person is intoxicated or asleep, they cannot give you consent. During intoxication, communication is very flawed and often misunderstood. If someone is asleep, they're obviously not talking to you, so they cannot give consent in either of these situations. The absence of a no does not equal a yes. Just because someone isn't outright telling you no, it doesn't necessarily mean they're okay with what you're doing. A good habit to get into is to just simply ask, is this okay? And to get a verbal, non-debatable yes. Consent is an every time thing. This means if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you still have to make sure that it's okay what you're doing. Because just because you have someone's consent to do something to their body now does not mean they want you to do it in the future. The Don't Be That Guy campaign has put up posters around many cities portraying some of these situations where consent is not given, such as intoxication or being asleep. According to theglobeandmail.com, the violence was lowered by 10% in these areas. Women have always been told to hold your keys a certain way, don't go outside at night, always dress modestly, but assault still happens. There's obviously something very flawed in the system that we need to change. 1 out of 5 undergraduate females will be harassed and or assaulted in their first year of college, and seeing as how we're going into these colleges in the fall, this is our problem. Many of you know how to stay safe using the traditional methods, so this is our responsibility, and we are the thing that needs to make the change now. Always make sure you have consent with your partner. Make sure it is 100% and there is no debatable answer that they give you. It can change not only your life, but the life of the person that you're with. Changing how men are supposed to behave can create a safer environment not only in colleges, but for the rest of society given enough time.
considered rape if both the persons are intoxicated?
It really is blurred. I think if you agree beforehand, it's fine, but if you're both intoxicated, a lot of things get misunderstood. Drunk people are kind of known for being confused a lot of the time.
If I can clarify, it is if you don't have clear judgment, it is considered. It could be considered, so.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, men are more sexually driven than women, and more cases than not, the woman is weaker than the man. So are you saying that we should take away all self-defense for women to just prove a point?
No, I'm not saying that teaching women self-defense is necessarily a bad thing. It just shouldn't be the only thing that we're doing.
What can be taught to men specifically to help in this issue?
I think a lot of the problem is that men are always told, oh, you have to be a man, and if you don't sleep with this woman, you're not man enough. I think if we teach men that their masculinity is something that they themselves define and not something pushed onto them, it could help a lot. Also, teaching the straightforward ways to know if someone is consenting or not could help.
All right, great job.